Have you ever thought about how a country's entire future, its wealth, its power, everything could be decided by a single line on a map? You know, the coastline? Today, we're going to dive into this really profound and often punishing link between a nation's geography and its destiny. So let me ask you this. What do Switzerland, Bolivia, and Uganda all have in common? I mean, on the surface, you'd think not much, right? You've got a wealthy European nation, a South American state, and an East African country. But they all share this one single geographic feature that completely shapes their politics, their economies, and their connection to the entire world. And the answer is, they're all landlocked. Just think about that for a second. They are totally cut off from one of the planet's four great global gateways, the sea. Without a coastline, a nation's access to the planet becomes fundamentally and permanently different. And this isn't just some rare thing. Right now, there are 44 landlocked countries, and they're home to about 7% of the world's population. We're talking about nearly 500 million people living with this pretty unique and constant challenge. So what does being landlocked really mean day to day? Well, it means that to get in on global trade, these nations completely depend on their neighbors. We call them transit countries, just to get to a port. This creates an immediate and permanent dependency that really affects everything. Now, if you think that sounds tough, get this. There's the unique case of Uzbekistan. It's what's known as a doubly landlocked nation. This means that for its stuff to reach the sea, it has to cross not just one, but two international borders, because even its direct neighbors are also landlocked. I mean, can you even imagine the logistical nightmare? Okay, so this complete reliance on other countries isn't just about shipping containers. It creates a constant political headache. From day one, a landlocked nation's whole foreign policy is shaped by this dependency that they just can't escape. Just put yourself in a leader's shoes. You absolutely cannot afford to make enemies with the countries that control your gateway to the world. So these landlocked nations have to be incredibly careful. They often end up acting as neutral buffer states between bigger competing powers. A perfect example, Nepal and Bhutan, carefully wedged between the giants of China and India. And yeah, you can bet this fight for sea access has led to some pretty devastating wars throughout history. For Bolivia, losing its coastline over 100 years ago is still a deeply felt national wound. And for Ethiopia, their whole situation changed practically overnight when Eritrea gained independence. Now you're probably thinking, wait, aren't there laws for this? And you're right. The UN has a convention that's supposed to give landlocked nations the right to access the ocean through their neighbors. But, and this is a big but, these agreements are incredibly hard to enforce, which leaves them with diplomacy and good old-fashioned power politics as their only real tools. So this political vulnerability, it bleeds directly into a massive economic challenge, what you could call the high cost of distance. And it affects everything, from the price of a loaf of bread to the country's entire economic growth. And you know, this is not a new problem. Way back in 1776, the father of modern economics, Adam Smith, he'd already spotted this. He noticed that the poorest regions were the ones that were farthest from the coast, totally cut off from the easy flow of trade that comes with the sea. And what's wild is that all these years later, Adam Smith is still right. The data is pretty stark. While landlocked countries only make up about 7% of the world's population, they account for a staggering 38% of the world's bottom billion poorest people. The link between being landlocked and being poor is, well, it's hard to deny. And the reason why really boils down to simple economics: cost. On average, transport costs are a whopping 30% higher for landlocked economies. Think of it like a permanent 30% tax that geography just slaps onto almost everything they buy and sell. Let's just follow one shipping container to see what this looks like. So every single product, whether it's coming in or going out, has to be unloaded at a foreign port, then put onto a truck or a train. Then it has to cross at least one extra border with all the paperwork that involves, and only then can it continue its journey. Every single one of those steps adds time, money, and risk. And all those extra steps, they translate into very real delays. In parts of Africa, for example, just importing goods to a landlocked nation can take an average of 9 extra days. When you're trying to compete in a fast-paced global market, a week-long delay can absolutely cripple your business. And get this disadvantage even bleeds into the digital world. You might think, well, hey, we have satellites, problem solved. But not really. About 99% of all global internet traffic travels through physical underwater cables. That means landlocked nations literally have to pay their neighbors to tap into this data, which leads to higher internet costs. The curse of geography can even slow down your bandwidth.
But right about now, a thought might be popping into your head. I can almost hear you asking, what about the exceptions? What about wealthy, landlocked countries like Switzerland or Austria? It's a great question, and it has a fascinating answer.
The explanation, once again, comes down to geography. But it's not about their own land. It's all about the quality of their neighbors. See, Switzerland is surrounded by some of the world's most stable, wealthy, and advanced economies with incredible infrastructure. Uganda, on the other hand, has to rely on neighbors that face some pretty big challenges with stability and infrastructure.
And this economic connection is incredibly tight. Research shows that because these economies are so intertwined, when a transit neighbor's economy grows by 1%, the landlocked country tends to grow by a remarkable 0.7%. So being landlocked next to a powerhouse like Germany, well, that becomes a powerful engine for your own growth.
And it's not just about roads and railways. Switzerland has access to the Rhine River, a reliable natural highway that flows right through a stable partner to one of the biggest ports on the planet. Now compare that to the Central African Republic. It also has a navigable river, the Ubangi, but it flows through the unstable Democratic Republic of Congo, making it a totally unreliable and often dangerous route.
So you see, the success of a country like Switzerland isn't a paradox at all. In fact, it's the ultimate proof of the rule. It shows that your fate isn't just decided by your own geography, but by the geography and stability of your entire neighborhood. All of this brings us to one final, really crucial question. In our modern, super-connected world of today, does any of this geography stuff still matter as much as it used to?
Well, the unavoidable answer seems to be a big, fat yes. What this all shows us is that even with all of our technology and progress, a simple geographic fact, whether or not you have a coastline, continues to be one of the most powerful and predictable forces that determines a country's fate. So the next time you look at a world map, just remember that the most important lines on it might not be the borders that humans draw, but the coastlines we don't. Because it seems that even in our incredible world of satellites and cyberspace, maybe we haven't escaped the fundamental constraints of geography as much as we sometimes like to think we have.